Guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I have for you my February book wrap-up. Now in the month of February, I have read a total of 10 books. There were some books that really stuck out for me, there were some books that were and then there were a few So I just wanted to kind of go through and talk about each book individually. So the first book I read was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And I have my iPad here. I'm going to read you a little bit about it. So it says, somewhere out beyond the edge of the universe, there is a library that contains an infinite number of books, each one the story of another reality. One tells the story of your life as it is, along with another book, for the other life you could have lived if you had made a different choice at any point in your life. While we all wonder how our lives might have been, what if you had the chance to go to the library and see for yourself? Wonder, would any of these other lives truly be better? In The Midnight Library, Matt Haig's enchanting new novel, Nora Seeds finds herself faced with this decision. Faced with the possibility of changing her life for a new one, following a different career, undoing old breakups, and realizing her dreams. Now, I was a huge fan of this book. This was actually my first 5-star read of 2021, and I thought that it was super eye-opening and a super interesting take on other worlds out there. So you don't just have a library. Nora has a library because she loves to read, whereas somebody else could have movies, TV shows, food. There's just so many different options. You pick up one thing and something in that life is a little tiny bit different. Say you chose hot cocoa instead of coffee one day. It could be that. But I thought it was so interesting, and just to see all the different paths that your life could have taken. And you kind of look and see all the regrets that you had along the way, and would you do those things differently knowing what you know now? For me, it was a 5-star read. For me, it's something I think everybody should read. It was such a good book. The writing was beautiful. The style was beautiful. And it's a book I think I would read again. So the next book I have for you is Of Murders and Mages by Nikki Haverstock. This is the first book in the Casino Witch Mysteries series. This one was a super short read. I read this one on my on my phone, and it was just kind of there whenever I was not timing myself on like the typical, so I have Bookly, and I'll time myself and my reading for like my physical copies of books, but I don't do that on my Kindle. But when it's on my phone, it's just one of those things that I pick up and read when I have little increments of time, but not enough to physically sit down and actually time myself. So I have my iPad here again, and I will read you the little summary that's on Amazon. 3 ways that Ella's life is totally messed up. Her new coworker is as cranky as he is attractive. A mischievous cat has decided she needs a familiar. She just found out she's a witch who can read the emotional hologram of a magical death. And isn't that a mouthful? And oh yeah, there's 5 dead bodies, and no one knows how they are connected. Now she's drawn into a madcap investigation at the casino where she's managed to snag a job. She must navigate learning her new mage abilities, a topless burlesque show, a jealous girlfriend, gamblers of all varieties, and magical chocolate cake. All while not setting herself or others on fire before the murderer makes her the next victim. So this was a fun, quick read. But I feel like the character development was very lacking. Some characters had absolutely no development, which was sad. But I got this book for free from Free Booksy or something like that. I don't know. But the ending was a bit abrupt, and I felt like it could have wrapped up a little bit better. But it was like, oh, and this person's the murderer, by the way, who's trying to kill everybody. And for me, I would have liked something a little bit more with like the reasonings behind the murders and all of that. But it was like a 3-star read to me. It was fun. I wouldn't read it again, but it was definitely a fun read. So next I have for you Fun Home, the family tragicomic. This is by Alison Bechdel. I read the graphic novel of this. I don't know if there's an actual novel. I thought there was, but I never saw it again. So anyway, this is about the author, this story, and it's like an autobiography, basically. Amazon has this as the description. Distant and exacting Bruce Bechdel was an English teacher and director of the town funeral home, which Alison and her family referred to as the Fun Home. It was not until college that Alison, who had recently come out as a lesbian, discovered that her father was also gay. A few weeks after this revelation, he was dead, leaving a legacy of mystery for his daughter to resolve. In her hands, personal history becomes a work of amazing subtlety and power, written with controlled force and enlivened with humor, rich literary illusion, and heartbreaking detail. I will not lie to you, I did not realize it was an autobiography. Even after I read it, I thought it was just a story. Now, I know the music from the musical because my family is very, very theater oriented, and I love the music. But honestly, I felt like the development of the story was really flat in the comic. And I didn't nearly enjoy it nearly as much as I wanted to. But now I find out that it's not a biography and that was her life. And I don't feel like that was an enjoyable life. Just saying. Maybe I missed the point, but for me, it's not something I would read again. It's really not something I would recommend either, so. But the music's really good for the musical. So the next book I have for you is My Dark Vanessa by, Kate Elizabeth Russell. Sorry, I have a little notebook that has all my notes about it, everything. So this book was disturbing in ways I didn't even think of. So Google Books has a description of it that I'm going to read. Vanessa Y was 15 years old when she first had sex with her English teacher. She is now 32, and in the storm of allegations against powerful men in 2017, the teacher, Jacob Strain, has been accused of sexual abuse by another former student. Vanessa is horrified by this news because she is quite certain that the relationship she had with Strain wasn't abuse. It was love. She's sure of that. Forced to rethink her past, to revisit everything that happened, Vanessa has to redefine the great love story of her life, her great sexual awakening as rape. Now she must deal with the possibility that she might be a victim and just one of many. Nuanced, uncomfortable, bold, and powerful, My Dark Vanessa goes straight to the heart of some of the most complex issues of our age. So originally I had no idea what this book was about when I picked it up. All I know is that I had heard so many things about this story. I heard that it was dark and twisted, which is something that I really like. And so that was enough to intrigue me. And I had so many people on my friends list that I'd read it last year. And I was like, why not? Why not give it a shot? I was drawn in immediately, and I 100% sympathized with Vanessa. I mean, she thought that this dude was like the love of her life, and turns out he was basically, essentially abusing her. And like, just if you go back from like your age now and look at some of your past relationships and see, oh God, that was actually abuse. Like, that can be gut-wrenching for kids or for adults and like completely set you back and in your path and journey onto your own well-being and yourself. And I totally 100% sympathize with that girl. I couldn't imagine it. So next I have for you the book Girl A by Abigail Dean. And Google Books describes this. She thought she had escaped her past, but there are some things you can't outrun. Lex Gracie doesn't want to think about her family. She doesn't want to think about growing up in her parents' house of horrors. And she doesn't want to think about her identity as Girl A, the girl who escaped. The eldest sister who freed her older brother and 4 younger siblings. It's been easy enough to avoid her parents. Her father never made it out of there. And her mother spent the rest of her life behind bars. But when her mother dies in prison and leaves Lex and her siblings the family home, she can't run from her past any longer. Together with her sister Evie, Lex intends to turn the home into a force for good, but first must come to terms with her siblings and with the childhood they shared. This book was so disturbing as a parent. I had no idea what this book was about when I got it from Book of the Month. Sure, I read the little blurb that it had, but I never in my life expected it to be this. As a mom, I felt so much for Lexi and her family and for her siblings, for everything that they went through and growing up the way they did. I can't imagine making my child grow up like that and treating my child like that. I did enjoy reading about the after effects that what they grew up in had on their lives later. I will probably never read this again because it is so traumatic to read, but I'm happy that I did read it. So when I was in cosmetology school, we had this thing happen, I think it was in Blackstone, Mass, that people were calling House of Horrors. And so when I was reading this, that's all I could think about. And I remember like they found like skeletons of kids in the closet and like babies in the closet, and just, it's depressing and heart-wrenching when you hear things like this happen. Girl A brought back a lot of that, and I had a friend in cosmetology school who used to go to that house, and like that hit really close to home for her, and just stuff like this really can kind of take a toll on me. And that one did. So next I have for you Vanilla Vengeance by Molly Maple. And this one, Google Books describes it as this. Charlotte McKay doesn't know what to expect when she moves in to take care of her elderly aunt. When Charlotte discovers a dead body her first day in the cozy town of Sweetwater Falls, she worries she may have made the wrong choice, moving from the big city to a small town. She was hoping for a family feel and a fresh start. Not a shakedown from local law enforcement and an aunt who keeps disappearing right when danger happens. Sweetwater Falls is filled with lovable characters harboring dark secrets. Even though Charlotte is certain none of her new neighbors could possibly be the killer, she is beginning to learn that no one is above suspicion. This was another like free Booksy Kindle book that I had picked up, and another one that was just a fun, quick read on the iPhone while I waited for my daughter in her various and millions of activities. It was predictable. I predicted the murderer from the get-go. I'm not one that likes predictable books. Generally, when that happens, it's not something I'll read again. If there's a massive twist in it, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see if I can read that again and figure out if there's any clues along the way. Not this one. This one I knew almost instantly who it was. Next I have for you The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I have never read The Hobbit until now. My husband is obsessed with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and all those Middle-earthy, geeky kind of things. So I decided it was time that I try. I had tried to read it, God, I think it was years ago. My uncle gave it to me and I was like, I'm bored. Because I had read Harry Potter and he was like, oh, it's just like Harry Potter. In my opinion, it is not like Harry Potter. Anyway, so Barnes & Noble's, if you don't know what The Hobbit is, I mean, everybody knows what The Hobbit is, but I'm going to read Barnes & Noble's synopsis of it anyway. Bilbo Baggins is a hobbit who enjoys a comfortable, unambitious life, rarely traveling any farther than his pantry or cellar. But his contentment is disturbed when the wizard Gandalf and a company of dwarves arrive on his doorstep one day to whisk him away on an adventure. They have launched a plot to raid the treasure hoard guarded by Smaug the Magnificent, a large and very dangerous dragon. Bilbo reluctantly joins their quest, unaware that on his journey to the Lonely Mountain, he will encounter both a magic ring and a frightening creature known as Gollum. I wanted to like it, you guys. I really did. It's one of my husband's favorites, but it took me so long to read, and it was okay. It was like a 3-star read for me, maybe a 4. It was just okay. It's not something I would have to read again, but I read it to make my husband happy, and he was so excited that I finally read it. So next I have for you The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I had been trying to read this book for years. Like, I think it was 2007. I picked it up at the bookstore and never did anything with it. Like, I read like the first few chapters and I was like, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. And it was just that. Not what I thought it was gonna be. So I'm gonna read Amazon's synopsis of it. And it is a realistic and emotional look at a woman who falls into the grips of insanity, written by the iconic American writer Sylvia Plath. The Bell Jar chronicles the crack-up of Esther Greenwood, brilliant, beautiful, enormously talented and successful, but slowly going under, maybe for the last time. Sylvia Plath masterfully draws the reader into Esther's breakdown with such intensity that Esther's insanity becomes completely real and even rational. As probable and accessible an experience as going to the movies. Such deep penetration into the dark and harrowing corners of the psyche is an extraordinary accomplishment and has made The Bell Jar an enduring classic. Okay. Now, I thought it was going to be this dark and twisted thing about this girl constantly trying to commit suicide, coming out of it, attempting suicide, coming out of it, attempting suicide. I didn't realize it started off with a story and then got to that point. So like for the first half of the book, I was like, okay, is this gonna get better? Is this gonna get better? Am I just gonna keep reading and like nothing's gonna happen? But it was like almost immediately halfway through the book, it took this massive turnaround and I was like, oh, well, this is what I expected it to be all along. Because growing up, I had heard about the Bell Jar and it being this like twist of this psyche, but it was not at first. And I was like, am I reading the right book? So I personally felt like this was a book that I needed to read. Just in life, at least once. And well, it was a one and done for me. Because it was just bizarre. Completely and truly bizarre. So next I have for you the book Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. So this book is just a collection of poetry and prose about heartbreak and love and raw emotions. And it's divided into sections to read when you feel like you need them the most. I will be honest, I really enjoyed this. And though I read it all in one day and didn't read it when I needed it the most, I could totally see if you're going through a heartbreak, you read this one section. If you're going through something else like loss, you read this section. And I could totally see that being helpful. But I read it all in one day and I was like, it was eye-opening, and she was a beautiful writer. And I would probably get the others to read as well. But this is a book that I think I'll pick up and read at the times that I need. Not something that I would read cover to cover like I did the first time. So next I have the book I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. This was a tough read, guys, for a lot of different reasons. But I'm just gonna read the little blurb on Amazon from it. The haunting true story of the elusive serial rapist turned murderer who terrorized California during the 70s and 80s, and of the gifted journalist who died tragically while investigating the case, which was solved in April of 2018. For more than 10 years, a mysterious and violent predator committed 50 sexual acts in Northern California before moving south, where he perpetrated 10 sadistic murders. Then he disappeared, eluding capture by multiple police forces and some of the best detectives in the area. 3 decades later, Michelle McNamara, a true crime journalist who created the popular website truecrimediary.com, was determined to find the violent psychopath she called the Golden State Killer. Michelle pored over police reports, interviewed victims, and embedded herself in the online communities that were as obsessed with the case as she was. I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the masterpiece McNamara was writing at the time of her sudden death, offers an atmospheric snapshot of a moment in American history and a chilling account of a criminal mastermind and the wreckage he left behind. It is also a portrait of a woman's obsession and her unflagging pursuit of the truth. Utterly original and compelling, it is destined to become a true crime classic and may at last unmask the Golden State Killer. So let's talk about this. Michelle's writing style sucks you in from the get-go. Her descriptiveness, the word, like everything about it just draws you in and you forget that this stuff actually happened. And this person did these things to these couples, to these women. And it's just, your mind is blown. And everything about it just sucks you into this gruesome tragedy that happened in California. And I'll be honest, I wish she were still alive to capture more true crime amazingness, because this was something that I didn't know if I would ever read. I knew I wanted to, but I didn't. I had watched the HBO documentary series and then I read it. And as much as I don't want to love it because of the subject matter, it was truly an amazing read. The only bad part I have to say is that she died before she had finished writing it, and the 2 people that really took over writing it just could not capture her style. And the last, part 3, I think it was, because it has part 1 and 2 that she did, and then she dies. And then part 3, her editor, a detective, and somebody else helped to take over the rest of it. And it was an obvious switch, and it just wasn't as compelling as her stuff that she had written. I will say that the afterword by her husband, I guess it's his late wife, by her husband was beautiful. And you could really see how much Patton actually really loved her in that, just those couple of pages. It was a wonderful read, even though the subject matter was not wonderful. It's not something I would read again. I don't think I would have the stomach to, because it's so disturbing, but it was really good. All right, guys, that is it. And I know, we go from talking about I'll Be Gone in the Dark to, a fun little outro. But anyway, I really like doing this monthly wrap-up. Maybe next time I'll have, a better system. This was my first one, just kind of seeing how it feels, how it felt to really get into the story of it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye.